Welcome to the channel. With reference to our discussion on the subject of 52 plus painting defects, their causes and countermeasures, our today subject of discussion is one very important defect, and that is floating and flooding. The discussion includes definition and photographs of floating and flooding, explanation of floating and flooding, causes and countermeasures, repair method, and finally, as usual, introduction to the next topic. As you can see from these two photographs related to floating and flooding is a paint defect characterized by color variation in a dried film caused by uneven distribution or separation of pigments during application or drying, whereas floating appears as localized, non-uniform color change, that is, pigment accumulation along brush marks or dark edges in thick spray areas, while flooding refers to uniform overall color shift across the entire surface, for example, difference due to brushing over partially dried areas or variation in atomizing air pressure during spray. To explain further the floating and flooding defects, we can say that the term floating is used to describe a non-uniform color change in the surface of a paint film. For example, in brush applied finishes, a pigment float may follow the line of brush marks. In spray-applied metallic finishes, black edges may be seen in the areas of high film thickness. Flooding क्या है? The flooding term is used to describe a uniform color change. So in both the cases, floating and flooding is color change over the whole surface of the paint film. For example, if a brush applied paint film is allowed to dry for a few minutes, a section which is then brushed over may show a different color. In spray finishes, a color difference may be seen between film sprayed at very low and at very high atomizing air pressure. Now coming to the causes and countermeasure related to floating and flooding. The number one probable cause could be heavy wet film. Floating defects occur due to applying excessive heavy wet film. The countermeasure is use good spraying technique. Number two probable cause could be brush working. Flooding occurs when paint is brushed again after initial setup. The countermeasure is avoid working the paint after setup. Use good quality thinner. तीसरी मुमकिन वजह air pressure error. Extremes of spray air pressure cause slight color differences. Therefore, use correct air pressure and correct spray gun setup. चौथी मुमकिन वजह improper spray gun settings result in uneven distribution. Therefore, use correct spray gun setup. पांचवी मुमकिना वजह incorrect viscosity. That is, paint applied at a wrong viscosity increases pigment separation risk. Therefore, thin it to correct viscosity. छठी मुमकिना वजह fast drying. That is, rapid drying in hot dry conditions may cause uneven pigment flow. इसका काउंटर मेजर add retarder or use slow thinner under hot dry conditions. Number 7. Probable cause could be turbulent air. Excessive air movement disturbs pigment orientation in the wet film. Therefore, avoid turbulent air movement in spray booth or otherwise called as application area. Now, coming to floating and flooding repair method. If the film is still wet, apply additional thin coat of color to even out the defect. Or agar, if the film has hardened, allow the affected area to fully cure. Flat, that is, sand the surface carefully. And finally, refinish it using the correct spray or brush technique. With this, we conclude our discussion on the subject of floating and flooding a paint defect. Our next topic would be defect number 24, that is lifting. Thank you and thank you very much.